All right. Now, the ODM party has been doing this something called ODM Linda Ground, where they go to a particular ODM support base, and when they arrive there, they ask the members to defend the ground for the ODM party. You'd understand this is necessary because there are talks of disintegration within the party that's coming after the passing on of the party leader, Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. So they've been doing this thing. They go, they do their rally, they talk to the people, then they ask the people to defend the ground. Sometimes back they were in Kamkunji and Kibera, where we actually detailed an episode, and Honorable Oburu Odinga was of course very looking tired. And other than that, they have also done it in Malaba. Yesterday I think they were in Malaba. They did it in Malaba, and so there are a lot of statements that came out of it that now shows the direction of that particular party that we will put before the mirror. But this is also happening in a very parallel manner, because it's happening at the time that the CS body has also been in movement. I saw him in Gori the other time defending the policies and the privatization, of course, of these particular companies, including the sale of Safaricom shares, which now they term as offloading Safaricom shares and not essentially the sale. And of course also the sale of the KPC, which now will be jointly managed between the two states, being the Republic, of course, of Kenya and the Republic of Uganda. By the way, talking of Republic of Uganda, it's a congratulations to the seventh term for the president of Uganda, Honorable Yoweri Museveni, who is now serving his 7th term in that particular area. Bobi Wine has rejected the results that are coming out of Uganda, but the election polls of Uganda, the independent polls of Uganda, however independent or lack of it can be, has now said that Honorable Yoweri Kaguta Museveni won those particular elections with around 7 million votes, while Honorable Bobi Wine came second with around 2.4 million votes. Now, Bobi Wine has rejected those claims, the nature and method of going through elections in the African democracy, and when the united opposition rejects. But of course, with that announcement, Museveni is already being congratulated across the world for his 7th term. Later on, perhaps we'll take a look at that, but let us start first with this ongoing thing that is happening in Eldoret right now, where Mbadi is addressing the people and is yet again defending the privatization of government policies, hoping that there is something new that will be said out of it. Let us delve in and hear what Honorable Mbadi is saying.
High cost of living, unemployment, and governance transparency. We still remember vividly 2024, more particularly what would have turned out as a dark day in this country. That was the 25th of June 2024. What the youth of this country were protesting about was the issue of high or rising cost of living. Number two, the youth were also complaining about unemployment. They're coming out of colleges with good certificates. Their parents have exchanged ng'ombe with papers, certificates. Papers which should help them better their lives. Papers that should help them get job opportunities. But alas, when they come out, there are no employment opportunities available. The other thing that the youth were complaining about on privatization, and I'm drawing to a close. We're back in very few papers. Then it has sema machache off the cuff. So, ladies and gentlemen, on privatization, I have this to say. Privatization is often part of a broader process of structural reform. Privatization transactions are complex and require careful consideration of a number of issues. Well-designed and implemented privatization policies are essential to ensure credibility of reforms, to help governments achieve their objectives, and to create efficient and competitive markets for goods and services. Privatization of state-owned enterprises ushers in the private sector to participate in commercial activities that government-owned enterprises are taking. This is necessary because the private sector carries out commercial activities more efficiently than public sector, especially in competitive industry. By the way, I hope you are aware that you as individuals and your private businesses are included when I make reference to the private sector. It's not some strange animal somewhere. If you can do some small business, you are also in the space of the private sector. The benefits of privatization include, but is not limited to, the following. 1, lower prices, better quality of goods and services produced, wider choices for consumers, more innovation, minimal red tape in decision making, and of course, less corruption.
So that's what Mbadi is talking about when it comes to privatization, and of course still trying to defend this, but also is doing a very good role from the point of government. You would say is doing a civic education for the people, and is informing them of what privatization entails and who is involved in the private sector. So as much as we are talking about privatization when it comes to the sale of the KPC and the Safaricom, then Mgala Muwe Bathaki Mpe, in that particular regard, Honorable Mbadi is doing well to inform the people really what are we talking about, because it seems that the conversation of privatization is a limit of the elite, and not everyone in the Kenyan space understands it, even if they would want to, before you tell them about the sale of KPC and Safaricom. Now let's listen to the part where he goes a little bit off record without privatization, and then we move into the Malava speeches before we put for you what is coming out of Uganda, where Chaluganyi has now rejected the results.
Institution, and Kenya is leading in this region and almost in Africa in terms of human capital. We cannot create enough jobs with 5% economic growth. We have done our assessment, and for this country to create enough employment opportunities for our people, we must get 7 to 7.5 economic growth every year. But that will not happen with the current infrastructure. It can never. When you leave Nairobi, you are going to Malaba through Eldoret. You have to plan for a day. You will take 1 full day on the road. A distance you should cover in 4-5 hours if the road was done. Between Nakuru, Naivasha, and Nakuru is a nightmare, because we don't have infrastructure. I don't want today to go into politics of which region has better roads than another region. You know it. And we cannot continue lamenting about the past. Whatever you do, you will not correct it. It's like losing a parent. Yes. If you left Malaba with your fish going to Nairobi.
Well, not much on the rhetorics now that he has tied it back to emotions, but he's talking about something that is sensitive, saying that you cannot attain the rate of employment that is supposed to be created for the youth in Kenya right now with the 5% economic growth that, of course, Ndindi Nyoro told us that our economy right now is growing at around 4.9% and doing very poorly in this particular eastern region of Africa, where other economies are doing double digits like Rwanda. And so for Honorable Mbadi, it's from a very, very comfortable position of assessment, which he says he has done the assessment and it's perfectly showing that you cannot create employment until our economy hits a 7 to around 7.5% economic growth rate. And he says to get even there, then the infrastructure as it is cannot create that opportunity. So we are asking for a country that is geared towards development. As much as we are making political comments around politicians and the activities that are going there in, when it comes to the decisions of the government, then we have to listen in a bit and lend our ear and listen to what are they doing first before we come out loud with criticizing what they are already doing. And if now we were to take a look at this from a critical point of view, if Mbadi and the current treasury could actually grow this economy from a 4.9% to a 7 to 7.5%, when the Kenyan person at the bottom, the Kenyan person, ordinary Kenyan person who is living below $1 a day would still feel that particular impact. What do I mean? If the macro economy would grow to meet this 7.5%, while the micro economy is also doing very, very well towards that, then I feel like other than the political negotiations of who will lead the country in 2027, Kenya as a state would make a very, very good advancement locally. And so that is something that if they can explore without, of course, going back to the little that the microeconomics is already arranging, while also not giving much authority to the people that are contributing to the macroeconomics, then that balance can actually be good for the country. So politics aside, when it comes to government decisions, let's see how this particular CS, who is now making it his obligation to first teach on privatization and go ahead to even explain what is going on within the treasury, would transfer that to actual work within the treasury, and we'd see that exponential growth within a period of 2026 and into 2027, then that would have been a commendable bid for him. So Kenyans are watching. As people are still politicking, Kenyans are also very, very keen to see what government agencies are doing what. And so if they say something, then Kenyans are holding them accountable to see that particular actually things that they said get delivered to the Kenyan people. Okay, now let's go to more interesting story away from the decisions of the government, the lies, the sale, the promises, the talks and all that. Uganda, the chief opposition leader of Uganda, Honorable Bobi Wine, who is famously known as Bobi Wine, but is called Chaluganyi, has gone through his TikTok account to actually discredit the elections of Uganda. Before I make a commentary on it, let's just listen directly from the horse mouth.
Hello Ugandans, my name is Chaluganyi Robert, also known as Bobi Wine. Today is Saturday the 17th of January 2026 and the time is 9 a.m. in the morning. My wife and I have been under house arrest since the 15th of January when we had elections, and yesterday our house was raided by some police officers together with a number of other unknown individuals in plain clothes. They used ladders to climb over our fence, they cut off our electricity, they cut off our cameras, and they were being assisted by a helicopter that was hovering in the sky of our compound and providing them light as they were doing what they were doing. Amidst that raid, I was able to use my skills and escape my house. But I know they're looking for me. But even if they succeed and get me and do whatever, I want to say this to you, fellow Ugandans. First and foremost, we reject whatever is being declared by Mr. Nyabakama, because those so-called results that they're declaring are fake and they don't in any way reflect what happened at the polling stations or what is at the declaration forms. And therefore, those results, the so-called results, are fake. After arresting almost all our agents, after ballot stuffing, and after shutting off the internet, the regime is trying to once again rig the elections. What happened in the polling station is a completely different story, and we demand that the internet be restored and the rightful declaration forms and tally sheets from the districts are uploaded on the internet so that the people of Uganda can see the rightful results in transparency. We also demand that they hold whatever declaration is going on until the internet is restored and until the people of Uganda can follow on the results in transparency. We are glad that there are protests and we encourage the people of Uganda to resist the Ugandans. My name is Chaluganyi Robert, also known as
Tough things going on there for the gentleman, Honorable Robert Chaluganyi, who has put his heart in this particular race all the way back as early as 2021, where he lost, of course, to Yoweri Museveni, and raised these very allegations, saying then that, of course, the voting system then were also rigged around 2021 and 2022 period when Uganda were holding their elections. So that is the time that Honorable Yoweri Kaguta Museveni went back for his sixth term. Now, this particular time, Honorable Chaluganyi was hoping that he'd face Yoweri Museveni and ouster him in the ballot. He thought now old age would be on his favor, or he thought that maybe the Ugandan people would wake up more and rise behind him other than Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. But it seemed that structural impositions were already set in place way prior to this particular elections. If I could just let you a little bit in on what was going on in Uganda that was now away from the media coverage for quite some time. Robert was campaigning using the Uganda's national flag because all his other placards were banned by the government. So he could not use any Bobi Wine image. the people that have never seen him, because not every Ugandan of course has access to phones or even has access to this particular rallies. Uganda is vast, so the people that have never seen him physically could not know who he was even in the ballot, because the banners and the t-shirts and things like that were not there. So this was banned across board, to the extent that now the only thing that he was identifying to actually campaign for the Ugandan people was the Ugandan flag, and in his rallies you'd see the waving of Ugandan flag in a lot of masses. The most interesting bit is that for Yoweri Kaguta Museveni's camp, all the placards were rightly in place, and that was not actually taken away from them. Now, do not get me wrong, the issues of human rights and equality are actually very, very new to Africa and even to the world. When was the first convention on human rights ever arrived at? The man that was born on the day that the two covenants came into play in 1966 is still alive, still very, very alive. A 66-year born person is actually very strong and still young. So that shows you how young the idea of human rights is within the world. You can take me back to Universal Declaration of 1948, but that was not in a solid document. They declared human rights, but it was not being exercised in the world. So these two covenants, that is the International Covenant for Civil and Political Rights and the International ICESR, in the International Covenant for Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. Yeah, those two particular covenants that came into play in 1966 are the basis of human rights. And so when the worlds have evolved, and Kenya is actually a very stellar country in the African part when it comes to enforcing human rights, to the core, this thing is still very, very new to the African space. If you go to Zimbabwe, if you go to Zambia, you go deeper into these particular African countries, the concept of human rights is still very new, and so is in Uganda. So don't say it was unfair for Bobi Wine or fair for the other party. These people do not care much about fairness. They care about what is working for those particular systems. And so even Kenya, as we are still championing and we are very, very loud when it comes to demonstrations and fight for our rights, we need to remind ourselves that this recognition of rights is still a new thing that most countries are trying to adjust themselves towards. In traditional system, it was the ruling class and the subjects. There was nothing that the subjects had a right. And so for that, we commend Kenya, South Africa, and the countries that have taken it upon themselves to give a very good space for human rights to actually thrive, because every human deserves their rights to be protected. And in the Ugandan election right now, if it was that bad that even the security, the lights, the helicopter hovering, and the family had to live in that particular tension condition just because Chaluganyi wants to offer an alternative to the people of Uganda, then that was very sad. Here the People's Mirror, it's been a pleasure recapping for you the two stories, which is the move by the government to now offer civic education on what is privatization, and also how does their different cabinets work, and also the decision that is now coming out of Uganda, where the country is in protest while members of international community have started sending in their congratulatory messages to Honorable Yoweri Museveni, the Museveni of the Republic of Uganda. Now, those are the concerns of Bobi Wine, and we will keep you updated on anything that comes out of them moving forward. It's been a pleasure recapping for you again. Until our next episode.